Hey everybody, today we will be talking about our topic of cultures, norms, and ethics. To begin, I will be discussing why we chose this topic, why we chose these two articles, and a brief introduction to the presentation. So why do we choose this topic? We chose this topic because we feel that it can help portray the fundamental differences in cultural beliefs, touching on a topic so important as human rights and how they differ from the United States to Saudi Arabia. This topic shows the difference that has affected our current standing within this country politically as a new president has taken office, and in turn, the effect that it can have on business and overall standing between countries. We chose these two articles because they are both informative on the issue of cultural differences and shows how different cultural beliefs and norms can affect laws and potentially cause issues doing business with countries of different beliefs. Our articles were based on a specific issue, but both provided different background information on the subject. As a brief introduction, Al Hathel is a Saudi Arabian activist who fought for the right for women to drive within her country. She was later incarcerated for 3 years for doing so. In opposition to her incarceration, the Biden administration seized arms sales with Saudi Arabia and emphasized the importance of human rights in regard to foreign policy.
The first article that we chose was titled Saudi Arabia Releases Activists Who Fought for Women's Right to Drive, and this one's from the New York Times. The main points of this article was Loujain Al Hathloul was incarcerated for 1,001 days, which is nearly 3 years. This article was more so giving background to Al Hathloul, explained most of her activist movements and the different arrests that she had due to those activist movements. Saudi Arabia finally released her to try to get into good graces with the Biden administration after previously being in very good graces with the Trump administration. Biden went as far as to freeze arms sales with Saudi Arabia over these issues and reversed a terrorist designation on a rebel group that was located in Yemen. The main message of this particular article was the Biden administration expressed that they would emphasize human rights and democracy in their newly forming foreign policy, which this kind of shows the divide between cultural norms in different countries, as the Middle East does not particularly treat women in most situations as we do here in the United States. We're pretty equal in the United States. In the Middle East, that's not how it is. The article discusses Al Hathloul's background in her activism, which was centered for women's rights. This particular issue is based on a drive ban, and she was fighting against that. She hosted many protests, and during the drive ban, she drove across country just to kind of make a point and fight for women's rights. Al Hathloul was accused of corrupting the kingdom's morals and was considered a problem by many Saudi officials. The core information from this article was that she was released after her 3 years incarcerated. The incarceration caused a lot of issues with the Biden administration after being previously in really good graces with the Trump administration. Trump actually visited them and received an honor from visiting them, so they were in very good graces with the Trump administration. Al Hathloul was arrested multiple times in her effort for women's rights in the Middle East. When Crown Prince Mohammed, who was the son of King Salman, began making changes that women like Al Hathloul was fighting for, he gave no credit to any of the activists. And although she was released from prison, she's still on probation, and she will be for a couple years in Saudi Arabia.
The second article that we chose was Saudi Arabia Release of Loujain Al Hathloul and Overturned to Biden. The main points in this article were giving human rights to the people. Biden said he was ending U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen. Saudi Arabia making human rights the importance for activism. The help with the U.S. and Saudi Arabia has been affected with the decisions that were made. The messages that were in this article was Biden administration has tried to contact Prince Mohammed or his father, King Salman, to make human rights the importance in their new foreign policy. The U.S. is not wanting to make peace with Saudi Arabia since they believe women should not have rights within their culture. Biden has stopped the U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen and removing Yemen's Houthi movement from the designated terrorism list to facilitate a negotiation solution to the conflict. This will affect not only Saudi Arabia but the United States for future negotiations. So the core information in this article was Hathloul's sentencing for simple exercising her universal rights is unjust and troubling. Also, we have We have said that the Biden-Harris administration will stand up against human rights violations whenever they occur. Senior Saudi officials seen Halou's release as a relative low-risk gesture, which might speak some goodwill with the Biden administration. Some leading supporters of Prince Mohammed, however, responses with concern that the U.S. should demand more for little in return. Saudi Arabia has now made the importance of freedom, expression, and peaceful activism within their country.
Hello, I am Katie, and I am going to be discussing the articles' relation to each other, how they both discuss different viewpoints of the situation, and the benefits of reading both articles rather than just one. To start, both articles touch base on the same incident of Hathaway getting sentenced to jail for being a women's rights activist and how the Biden-Harris administration was able to get her released earlier this year. Hathaway made an impact with many women's rights activists, and now that she has been released, it has helped motivate other protesters to start to speak up about specific women's rights in Saudi Arabia. Next thing I'm going to talk about is how the article still had different viewpoints over the same topic. One article talked about the process of getting Hathaway released and the positive feedback she got from finally being released, whereas the other one focused more on the realistic side of the story, being that Hathaway still has to follow through with probation for up to 3 years and cannot travel for a total of 5 years. Her sister stating that Hathaway still is not technically free and that they will not relent until she is granted full freedom to speak, work, travel, and live freely. Lastly, I am going to discuss the benefits of reading both articles rather than just one. Reading both, we were able to gain more information on how she got released working through the Biden-Harris administration and the more personal side of it involving her actual freedom and the impact on her family and friends. One showed actual tweets from family members, and the other showed more political information on how Saudi Arabia is going to be changed and become better. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gabby, and I'd like to talk about how these articles relate to international business. Previously in class, we touched on Chapter 2, which talks about informal institutions and things like culture, ethics, and norms. A country's culture is not only just values and attitudes, but also includes things like education, religion, manners, social structure, and physical environments. A huge important chunk of the chapter talks about cultural literacy, which means being knowledgeable of a culture that allows a person to function effectively within it. These articles fit perfectly as we touch base on Saudi Arabia's culture when it comes to gender roles. These types of culture differences are extremely important when it comes to international business, as each country has their own way of life. Avoiding being ethocentric or believing your own culture is superior is the first of many steps one should take when wanting to take a business international. Offending a culture in a country that you are potentially creating business with is the fastest way to discourage these countries to continue. Knowing that Saudi Arabia does not allow women to do things like drive would be important to know before creating business together. Using things like cultural dimensions would be a great way to understand what the country is like, how it works, and who offends who. I'd like to now pass it on to Eric as he's going to summarize the project and the articles that we chose.
Hey everyone, thanks for passing this on to me. My name's Eric Decker. I'm going to go over the summary, the takeaways, and the conclusions for the 2 articles. In the takeaway section, it's really just about how Saudi Arabia culture and most cultures in the Middle East grant different human rights than you see in other places around the world. Now, obviously, women's rights is not a very popular thing in the Middle Eastern culture, so this could have a huge shift in what's going on over there. She went against all cultural expectations and norms when she defied the laws to protest right versus wrong, especially in the area of women's rights. She has done this multiple times, and she's even been arrested multiple times for this. Worldwide human rights obviously has the support of the Biden-Harris administration. They pulled their support for the Saudi Arabia-led war, as well as froze the arms deals with Saudi as well. As far as the conclusion goes, Saudi Arabia was basically forced to let her out of prison and kind of act in a way that the administration wanted, just to stay in good graces with America and really set the right foot forward for future negotiations. This will obviously play a huge role in the future relationships between America and Saudi Arabia, and it will have an effect on how we deal with other countries in the Middle East and how Saudi deals with other countries in the Middle East. Now, there have already been some changes in women's rights led in Saudi Arabia, and I believe that we can expect to see more around the Middle East as time goes on, especially based on the stronghold that the administration has placed on women and human rights around the world.